Consumers in Asia and maybe in particular in Korea are incredibly demanding. So that's what's made Korea such a hotbed now for everything, because we're never satisfied with movies, with music, with grooming products. So they wanted their products at the eye level.
Yeah.
So literally, they failed in Nopi. So Walmart comes to mind, Google comes to mind, Amazon comes to mind, Uber comes to mind. They all failed miserably here in Asia, not only in Korea, but in China, in Japan, so on and so on.
Asia is home to 60% of the world's population. If you're a business that plans to enter the Asian market, or you already have a presence and you want to grow, today's episode is for you. Hi, I'm Nishant Garg with What Market Wants. My guest for today specializes in international marketing. He is highly qualified and has over 3 decades of work experience. He's a professor of business and marketing at Yonsei Business School in South Korea. He received his doctorate in marketing from Harvard University in 1986. He's a contributing blogger at Harvard Business Review Online. He's the author of the book, Mastering Nopi, The Art and Science of Marketing in Asia. He has been a visiting professor at several universities all around the world. Since all that was not enough, he is also pursuing his passion as an independent filmmaker. Let's welcome Dae Ryun Chang. Hi.
Hi, Nishant. How are you?
I am good. Dae Ryun, could you walk us through your incredible life journey?
Yeah, it has been indeed a journey. And as you explained in the intro, I've been an academic, but I think even before that, my father was a diplomat. So in the book, I made it very anecdotal because I wanted to talk about my family. I wanted to make it more personal. And I think that's how brands have to be as well. I think the way you connect with people. And by the way, Nopi means eye level.
Yes, you mentioned that in one of your courses.
Yeah, that's when you connect with people. So in my journey, I think the international marketing part, I think, started even before school, because I was born outside of Korea. I was born in Taiwan, and we lived in 8 different countries. So I think it's almost second nature to be by now to me to be an international marketer. I think.
No wonder how you know 5 languages.
Thank you for all the research you've done. So you know me better than most people. I mean, people that have that I've conducted interviews with, I don't think I have mentioned a lot of the things that you've mentioned, like my language skills.
That's good to know. So tell me, what about marketing do you find so fascinating?
Yeah, that's a tough question. And I think marketing, again, is about understanding. And it's like the name of the show, What Market Wants. And I'm sure you modeled it after What Women Want. I'll get there.
You absolutely got it right.
That's part of my marketing training. That's part of my filmmaker training. Maybe one of your favorite movies. So I think that's I think the beauty of marketing, to try to get inside the heads and hearts. Because marketing and branding is not only about thinking, but it's also about feeling. So to do both is what makes a practitioner or even an academic like myself a good marketer.
So who are your mentors and your idols in this industry?
Okay. Well, I mentioned this in my book. It seemed like I'm really plugging my book, but my perhaps biggest mentor, and I'm very proud to say this, he's no longer with us, but I think most people know about Philip Kotler, who I've uh, lectured with. So I've had the luxury of meeting maybe the two giants of marketing. One is Philip Kotler, who is still with us, but there is another name which I think is less familiar to maybe a lot of people. But to me, he is the father of marketing. And his name was Theodore Levitt, the author of Marketing Myopia. So
Okay.
if you haven't read Marketing Myopia, you should, because it will blow you away.
Okay.
Because it was written in 1960, and he was still at the school when I attended Harvard Business School. And I talk about it in my book, but I just ran into him at the airport. He offered me a ride back to school in his sports car, and he inspired me to get a sports car later on. But anyway, he is to me the father of marketing. We would have conversations about what marketing is and how simple it has to be. Because I think sometimes marketing gets too complex. So I
Right.
think the biggest mantra when I'm teaching marketing is to simplify things. And if you've taken any of my classes, for example, my online classes, I think the biggest knock on my course is that, oh, maybe it's too simple, but it's intended to be simple
Yeah.
because I want to, again, connect it at the eye level
I'm
of
actually
marketing.
writing a blog that's titled Simple is Not Easy.
No, it's harder. It's harder than making anything complex. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. So tell me, why do you think Asia as a region is important for any global business?
Okay. Well, you mentioned that we represent population-wise 60% of the world. But nowadays, even maybe in terms of the market, let's say opportunities, it could be about that. So, well, of course, a large part of it is maybe China, but even excluding China, you have India, of course. You
Yeah.
still have Japan, and when you combine all the other countries, and especially the purchasing power that we have, one would be really amiss to not be in Asia. So maybe I could throw that question back at you and ask, why
Why?
not be in Korea? Because it would be ludicrous. It would be crazy. It would be suicidal not to be in Asia. Because this is where all the action is. This is where the money is.
So, according to you, what's different about marketing in Asia?
I think we have to be careful with that question because a lot of things are actually similar. So in my book, I don't argue that Asia is completely different. In fact, I don't try to talk about culture that much because I think culture is always that low hanging fruit in marketing that especially local marketers can always argue, throw at your face. Oh, you will never understand our market because you will never understand our culture. And I would maybe retort, bullshit. Excuse my French here, but so I think culture tends to get oversold, but I think so. There are differences, but there are also at the same time similarities. So I think uh, discriminating between what's similar and adapting for what's different, I think it's really the trick to succeeding in any market, not just Asia, but also in the US and Europe and so on and so on.
So,
And so marketing in Asia, I talk about it from three different angles. it's marketing from Asia,
Yeah.
which is what Tata has to do, what
Right.
let's say Reliance has to do, what Mahindra has to do. But
Yeah.
it's also marketing to Asia, which is what I talk a great deal about in my book. But also, maybe the third part, which I think often gets ignored, is using Asia as a brand. So
Okay.
Asia is not just a destination, it's not just a source, but it's also maybe a philosophy. It's a lifestyle. And to quote Billy Joel, it's a state of mind.
Yeah, I agree. Just like America.
Exactly.
So tell me, what are the key aspects of international marketing according to you?
Yeah, I think the key aspects is again dealing with change. I think is the hardest part, uh, especially given the turbulence that we have now in the convergence of technology and the convergence of culture. I think change management. I think we talk about change management in HR, in other disciplines within business, but I don't think we emphasize change management uh, sufficiently in marketing. So
So,
dealing with the new generation, the millennials and Gen Z. I mean, I was just grading until yesterday.
hmm,
Uh, we'll get to that later, I think, but films that I had my students make.
okay. Okay.
So I see this incredible difference between, for example, when I have my MBAs make films, they have an uproar about how I mean they're shocked that I'm asking them to make a film, whereas with the Gen Z, it's no problem, no problem. So they uploaded all these self-shot and self-edited films about themselves, but with a heavy marketing component, heavy branding, personal branding component. But I was just blown away again at the level of quality, the level of content that these
So in
young
a
people.
way, it is sort of native to them.
Yeah, so it is because they're used to shooting with their GoPros and with their smartphones, movies all the time, and they're editing and sending and posting on TikTok and Instagram and so on. So for them, it's second nature. So that's what we have to realize. And so to market to them, that's how we have to market to them, not in the old same old advertising, just one way of branding or one way of advertising.
Yeah, right. In fact, there is this very common misconception that marketing equals to advertising.
Exactly, exactly, and that is just so old school. And I've been talking about filmmaking. I mean, I've only been a filmmaker professionally. I say professionally because I work with professionals, but for 10 years now. But I've been making myself made homemade movies for maybe 20 plus years. And so for me, I've always believed in this philosophy, but I think it's only of late that marketers have come to adopt it and believe in it.
So by change management, you mean to keep evolving with the market.
Yeah, so I think just to give you an example, we know about Uber, we know about Airbnb,
Yeah.
and those are just two small examples of how an old idea can instantly get this, let's say, a facelift, and be seemingly high tech. But the concept is very old. It's very old. I mean, to have the comfort of home, you've always had that.
Yeah.
The same with just getting a ride. You have taxis, you have call taxis, but to marry that with GPS and marry that with social media. So sometimes the change is very, very almost trivial.
Yeah.
The science behind that, of course, will be very complex. But as seen from the eye level of the consumer, that small difference makes Uber and Airbnb
Yeah.
what they have become today. So
True.
sometimes it can be just that little modification.
Yeah.
All that that's all that is needed to modernize maybe a very old way of marketing, but at the new updated eye level of the consumer.
Yes, absolutely. At times, it's the little details that matter. Your product might not be new from top to bottom, it rarely is, but it's the little details that help you stand out and differentiate.
Right, right. So you can't throw out the old when you adopt the new. I think you need both.
Yeah. So, could you give us examples of brands that did not get it right when they tried to enter the Asian market?
Yeah, well, again, getting back to my book, I talk about Walmart because it is just so rich in the sense that in Korea, the reason they fail is because of the Nopi. Because if you think about Walmart and their whole warehousing retail 101 concept, it's about just selling products, so-called in the EDLP way, everyday low prices, and that nothing else matters, whether it's the store is located 50 kilometers outside of the capital and so on. And especially, I say it's rich or ironic because the shelving is, it can be maybe 2 or 3 stories tall, the way you have to climb the ladder to access the product. And well, that's how you buy stuff at Walmart. And when they came into Korea, they adopted the same concept, EDLP, low prices. But again, they assumed that people would drive 50 kilometers to the store and climb the ladder. But no, of course not. Consumers in Asia and maybe in particular in Korea are incredibly demanding, incredibly. So Korea is notorious for having maybe, and I hope you don't have Korean viewers, maybe you do. So if I offend my compatriots, I apologize, but we're incredibly demanding. So that's what's made Korea such a hotbed now for everything, because we're never satisfied with movies, with music, with grooming products. So they wanted their products at the eye level.
Yeah.
So literally, they failed in Nopi. So Walmart comes to mind, Google comes to mind, Amazon comes to mind, Uber comes to mind. They all failed miserably here in Asia. Not only in Korea, but in China, in Japan, so on and so on.
But in China, don't you think it is actually due to the political environment and the regulations over there?
Yeah, of course. So there are political reasons, there are regulatory reasons, but my comeback to you would be that there are success stories who have, despite maybe similar roadblocks, have nonetheless succeeded.
Okay.
Maybe in terms of national security, especially IT, maybe that they could be different, but nonetheless, they have overcome the local constraints.
So could you give us examples of brands that are successful in Asia according to you?
Successful?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Apple. So I talked about IT.
Yeah.
So Apple, I think telcos here in Korea, you can only imagine how Samsung would have locked them up, but no, Apple still was able to overcome all the regulatory and distribution and all the other even buy local kind of cultural constraints that Samsung tried to, I think, promote. And so Apple may lag Samsung in this market because Samsung is so big. Samsung represents maybe 1/4 of the GDP of Korea. They are that big.
Yeah.
Korea. But Apple is still a very incredibly large presence in Korea.
So why do you think that's the case?
Despite the fact that you have Samsung, a giant,
Yeah.
and maybe they would argue that even from a design standpoint, let alone from a technical standpoint, they are just as good or if not better than Apple. Apple has succeeded even in Korea.
So how do you think Apple is able to achieve something like this?
Yeah, I think it's because I think a lot of Asian brands, and this is where I think Korea has a chance in the future. There are a lot of promising signs, but up until now, especially for some industries, especially like electronics and IT, they've devoted too much attention on maybe hardware.
Yeah.
And have maybe not paid as much on the software. And I'm not talking about software for, let's say, a smartphone, but I'm talking about marketing software, soft factors like the coolness of a brand. So if you ask any Korean, which is the cooler brand, hands down, Apple always wins. So the cool guy, the so-called influencer. So I self-included. So I used to use a Samsung phone, but it just wasn't cool. It just wasn't cool. It didn't fit my movie maker kind of image. So I think since I wear two hats, one as a professor, in which case Samsung, it was okay, but with my movie making image that I have to craft, I think this is more fitting of the kind of image that I want to exude.
I will make a note I don't promote this episode in South Korea. Okay. So how do you think Apple leverages storytelling? Because as you mentioned, Asian brands are generally talking about functional benefits, rational benefits. And
Right.
on the other hand, Apple is trying to tap into this emotion. They are trying to tell a story, resonate to the audience. So how do
Right.
you think storytelling plays a role in that?
Yeah, well, branding is storytelling, and that's why I have my students make movies because making a movie, as all of you know, consists of having a vision, and then you have to draw storyboards. So that part, I don't think many people know, but it's like having, let's say, a strategy of how you want to shoot the movie.
Yeah.
And finally, you say action. So this is the paradigm called vision, strategy, and action.
Yeah.
You can also use the acronym VS&A. And so if you go on a movie set, this is what people talk about. The director, and since I'm a director, they always ask me, my actors ask me about, oh, what is your vision for this movie? Then I show them the storyboards, which is the plan. And then, of course, I call action. So filmmaking or storytelling is about those three things. And so if you can frame your strategy, marketing strategy or branding strategy in that way, it makes it that much easier to plan and then carry out. So that's why I think storytelling is important, because it's about having a vision, which is the narrative about what it is you want to convey to people that is compelling. And stories are something more so than any other, I think, marketing weapon. It's something that stays with you. Again, I started out by saying marketing has to be simple. Stories are simple. Yeah. Stories are very, very simple because we know the story sometimes. We say, oh, I know that story. I've seen that movie.
Yeah.
But there has to be a twist. And I know that Korean, I talked about Korea. So since I dissed some Korean companies, and I didn't mean to do that, but let me compliment Korea. And Korea now is the source of great stories. And some of these stories are now being remade in the US. I know a lot of Korean stories have been remade in such as The Man from Nowhere. So I know that was a movie that was remade in India. I forget what the Indian title was. So we can relate easily to stories because we've seen that movie.
Yeah.
But again, what makes it compelling is that we expect something different. And Korean movies are, in a way, borrowed from stories from other places like maybe the US, maybe in some cases India, in some cases China. But we put our little twist into it, such as with noir movies. So Korean noir is a big genre now.
So I use this analogy that marketing is just like filmmaking.
Yeah.
There are 3 stages in both: pre-production, production, and post, which is basically developing your strategy, content creation, and optimizing it, followed by promotions.
Exactly.
So it is, in a way, very similar to filmmaking.
It is, absolutely.
So just like your acronym VSA, I have one of my own, which is very simple: MBA, marketing, branding, action, the MBA your business needs.
Exactly. So like minds think alike, as they say.
Wow. So you talked about Walmart failing in Asia. What do you think they could have done differently?
Yeah, well, they did learn from their mistakes. And so when they went to China, and this is also quite interesting because I think Westerners, when they come to Asia, they assume that because Korea and Japan and China, they have a very, I mean, it's double-edged, but I guess you could relate to that on your continent with all the countries that you have surrounding you. But they assume that Korea will be closer to China than China is to the US. But at least in the case of Walmart, if we think about how large China is and how spread out their population is as well, that boded very well on their retailing 101 strategy in China. So Walmart succeeded in China more so than they did in Korea, given uh, the size of the country, the distance that people had to travel but didn't mind, the lack of competition, which was true in China, whereas in Korea was not. And plus they made sure that the shelf height was at the Nopi eye level. So they learned that from Korea. so they made sure to localize it much better when they went to China.
I believe McDonald's is an excellent example of localizing their brand as per the region.
Yeah, in India, especially.
Yeah. In India specifically, McDonald's has different burgers that you won't find anywhere else in the world.
Right.
So tell me, what inspired you to write your book, Mastering Nopi, The Art and Science of Marketing in Asia?
I wanted to write a book about my journey. So this is coming full circle to your first question. And you're a movie person, I can tell, because we're talking about bookend chapters or coming full circle in the movie. So it was my journey. And so all my other books had been very academic, and it was not written because they tell you do not write in the first tense, but here everything was I did this or I did that, and so it was very anecdotal. I have references about or anecdotes about not only my father, but my brother, but my mentor. And so I wanted to connect with my reader. So it was even though it was not a long book, it is very personal, and it almost wrote itself. The book almost wrote itself.
Wow.
I mean, it sounds very cliched, but sometimes it happens. Sometimes these cliched things happen.
Wow. Lastly, tell me, what books would you recommend to marketers and entrepreneurs?
Good question. Of course, if you are into branding, the Bible in brand management is Strategic Brand Management by Kevin Keller. So I would recommend that. That is just a de rigueur book that you should read. One of my best friends in academia is a professor at Columbia. His name is Bernd Schmidt.
Okay.
So I would recommend any of his books, like Big Think Strategy, if you want to really think big, but also a book, it's kind of dated now, called Experiential Marketing. He and I are about the same age, and he's been also an inspiration because he has no fear. So even in our consulting that we've done together, he's very bold, and a lot of that is reflected in his books. And he's also a psychologist by training. So if you're into marketing psychology or brand psychology, especially with experiential marketing, he incorporates a lot of that in that book.
It's funny you mentioned this. My upcoming guest is a professor of psychology. We plan to explore the connection between psychology and marketing.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, it has been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Dae Ryun.
Likewise.
You are a very straightforward, honest, and fun person to talk to.
And excuse my faux pas if I let slip out a French word, or if I have said bad things about a particular company, don't take it personally.
Not at all. Not at all. Thanks a lot for your time, Dae Ryun.
Thank you for having me. It's been my pleasure.
You all must check out his book and courses. I will leave the links in the description. To get more such great insights from the world of business, branding, and marketing, subscribe, follow What Market Wants on social media, and let me help you unlock your market potential. Take care.